Here we are podcasting.
Love that.
Love that. Good. I was like, talk.
Awesome.
Please say something.
What are we saying?
I basically have had this idea to do a podcast for ages. And it's usually your phone right now.
Yeah, I'm putting it
it's
on
like
silent.
phone addiction.
I'm putting it on silent, so then I've got your full attention.
Yeah, cool. So for a long time, I've really had it on my heart, and I really do believe it's like from the Lord to start a podcast. And I really like talking. You really like talking. And I know that the market is like flooded with podcasts, but I'm like an avid podcast listener. Like I listen to a lot of podcasts. But what I have found when listening to podcasts, particularly in like the Christian church space, is a lot of the podcasts are like, we're listening to like the top leaders, as we should be, right? Like I love a good Chris Valentin sermon. I love his podcast. It's fantastic. And he interviews people that are at like the top of their game, and that's amazing. And I love listening to, all sorts of podcasts. But it's never the stories of the small churches.
Yeah.
And so my heart for this podcast, we might even do another one. Me and Kirsty have been best friends for like years, decades. And so we think we're quite funny, and we might do some other podcasts about some other things. But the main thing we want to look at is this idea, and this podcast is going to be called Small Churches, Big God. Because I want to tell the stories of the small churches, because somebody that's leading a mega church or even leading a church, over 1,000 people, their job as a senior pastor looks really different to my job as a senior pastor. Like they're not having their finger in every pie and personally knowing and shepherding all 30 people in their congregation. They're they're shepherding probably a team of staff. And so when we listen to those podcasts, and even in some of the leadership spaces, it's just like, okay, that's cool, but I'm constantly having to like filter it down and say, well, how does that actually apply for me and my context? So if you don't know us at all, my name is Jessie. I pastor a church in Outback Australia in a small town called Broken Hill. I like to call it a giant small town. There's about 17,000 people in the city. And Kirsty, who are you?
I'm Kirsty. I'm Kirsty. What else do you want me to say? I don't pastor a church. I kind of like came here to help make worship good in the same church. So I'm kind of just brought my family from...
Yeah, so you have a real heart for worship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we thought we would do for these first couple of episodes is talk about like the story of how each of us came to be living here in Broken Hill. Neither of us are what is referred to as locals here. You do not get the title of local in Broken Hill unless you were born here. Yeah. And so when people ask me if I'm a local, I say, well, I'm a permanent resident and I've bought property. And then that kind of, they often laughed, otherwise it shuts them up. But we just wanted to, I think both of the story of me moving here intertwines with some pretty significant stuff that happened in Kirsty's life. And then obviously me living out here for 4 years and then visiting really regularly has led to God calling them out here as well. When I say them, I mean Kirsty and her husband and beautiful daughter. So we thought we would tell those stories first, because I think it's really cool that God is moving in those spaces. And I think for me, I've really wrestled. You came out of a much bigger church, and I've seen colleagues and peers plant churches, and they've grown really quickly, and I felt a lot I really relate to Moses. I'm like, Lord, why am I just out here toiling in the desert and we're not getting anywhere? The last couple of months at church have been really exciting, and we've seen salvations and baptisms and some really cool things happen, but there has been some really interesting seasons, and it's been an interesting journey taking on a church that's got 50 years of history, but not even 50 people in it. So that looks really different. But I believe that both of our moves were really God ordained and really spirit led. So we just thought we'd start it off. I think it'll give you guys a good basis for who we both are as well. Kirsty, I think, will feature quite heavily on this podcast, but I'm really keen to interview some other pastors and leaders as well from small churches. And when I say small churches, I'm thinking we're meaning even probably up to under 500 people. I think, just the really not mega churches. I have some fantastic friends in ministry that are having impact on like a global scale, and their churches would be under 200 people. So, yeah, that's basically the intro to us.
Cool.
So, how do we want to do this? Do you want to do your story first? Or I think maybe mine and then it leads into yours? Like that's chronological or?
JK.
What?
I'm just thinking alphabetical.
No. Chronological is in like order date. Like it's in how it happened.
It's been a really long time since I was at school.
Well, we could even go back to like we tell them together even. So what did life look like for you at the beginning of 2020?
Oh, I was working full time at the beginning of 2020.
Yeah.
That was a whole mixed bag because it was, I was planning a wedding and I was like in the midst of all of that. And I don't know if you've like, people who are listening have like planned a wedding before, but it's stressful.
It was stressful, yeah.
But I'm the type of person that's just kind of like, it is what it is. And would just kind of be like, if something went wrong, I was like, meh. Oh, well, it was meant to go wrong. Like, and I just kind of like had like that whole attitude about it. I was like, well, if things have gone wrong, it's fine. It's actually okay. Like, you don't need to stress about it. So then I like planned this wedding and my dad was working away a fair bit. So I was like trying to get him to kind of be a part of the planning process. And, as you're like planning your wedding, you want your parents to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So dad was working away, mum was staying away with him. And so like, it was just kind of like, it was just crazy hectic. We started 2020, got to February and we were like, yep, let's do this wedding. And
now what date did you get married?
Okay, so we got married on the 29th of February. So we're going to have a wedding anniversary once every 4 years.
Yeah.
Which is so good. It's so fun, especially when you've got a stingy husband. He's not stingy. He's just like, it's not actually our anniversary. So, we're not going to celebrate it this year.
You just made him sound like total red flags.
Okay,
Richard is a lovely man.
Right, he has, we know his drink of choice, and his drink of choice is a banana smoothie with 2 coffee shots.
It's called a Brunana. Shout out to Giovanni's.
So like, and that's my way of kind of getting a coffee order in the morning. I'm like, do you want a Brunana? And if he says yes, then I'm like, oh, wicked, I'm on it. Oh, we're good. So beginning of 2020, we were, so I was involved in your wedding. Yeah.
Still a bit salty I wasn't maid of honour, but, you have got a lot of sisters to choose from. No, that's all good.
It's rough. Sorry.
So, obviously we get to March and this thing called COVID happened.
Yeah.
But previous to that, we were planning your wedding. We were living in South Australia, like myself and my husband, and we've got 3 kids and just, doing life. I had recently gotten a job as a high school chaplain, which was in a low socioeconomic area, and working with kids. Like as a chaplain, you're supposed to be kind of what they call in the preventative mental health space, but I ended up doing a lot of triage as well. So that was it was reasonably stressful. I took it on thinking it would be 3 days a week, and it quickly became, or maybe even 2.5, and it quickly became 4 like full school days, and I was working a day a week at the church as well. So that's kind of what both of our lives look like, kind of pre-COVID. COVID looked different all over the world.
I do remember like getting ready for the wedding, and then I remember having a conversation with everyone, like makeup artist as well, about, did you hear about that disease that, someone came off a cruise ship in Melbourne, and we were like, meh.
It was just kind of like a weird rumour thing.
Just like, and we were just like, nah, whatever, it won't affect us.
I have no idea because our production guys left, but I reckon your mic could go a little bit closer. I don't know.
I feel like it's fine.
Okay. All right. So that's what it kind of looked like, I guess, beginning, and I just thought it'd be fun to start, or fun, I don't know. It was a pretty stressful year to start the journey there. And so South Australia didn't have any major long-term lockdowns. But it was kind of on again, off again. You'd be like out shopping and then, but I know everybody home for 2 weeks, there's been a case, and it was just a bit hectic. And I remember even at the time we joked because our lives were pretty intertwined by this point. Like we
do dinner like
yeah
3 times a night, like a week.
Yeah, I reckon at least 3 times a week we were having meals together. So we kind of joked at that point, we're like, do we just get like a giant rental and all move into it? Like, because, you know, you very much are like a second mum to my kids and kind of vice versa. Recently, Kirsty's daughter did confess that I'm cooler than her. So, no. So, like we were doing life together, we were all really, really close. And then, I'm trying to think chronologically what happens next. So, like, that's just to kind of set the scene. I personally was feeling like my job was really stressful, and I had done all this study. I'd done a diploma in ministry, which had qualified me to work as a chaplain, but wasn't why I did the study, if that makes sense. And so the work I was doing was really meaningful, but I was like, but Lord, I want to be a pastor. Like, that's the call that you've placed on my heart. Like, that's what I really feel called to do. So I was kind of having this internal wrestle. Then the world goes into a pandemic, and then you had quite a loss. Yeah.
So, like July of that year, actually, well, no, it was the end. Okay, 30th of June, this happened, which I joke through pain, so that's fine.
Oh, yes, like, that's we need like a little caveat at the beginning, like warning may contain coping through humour.
Yeah, right, yeah. Okay. Like, you know, I feel like I grew up, so I grew up in a housing trust, which is like government housing. Like, you know, I grew up in that sort of demographic where it's just kind of like, you know, parents didn't really know where your kids were until they came in at 9 o'clock at night or whatever. Like, you know, I'd be hanging around down the street, probably annoying the neighbourhood kids. I was like that neighbour, you know, like, go home already. You know,
oh, yeah.
You know that kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, do your parents not even care about you? Go home. Anyway, I was that kid. I don't think I was, but I kind of was. There was one time where I was jumping on that kid's trampoline because I'd only go to his house because he had a trampoline, and my parents never said that we could never get a trampoline.
Yeah, because it was always like the kids that had the cool stuff.
Yeah. So I would go to his house, and then I'd be jumping on his trampoline. One day I jumped on his trampoline and I learned how to do somersaults. Surprise, surprise. I could do somersaults, but I was a lot littler.
Okay, so what happened in 2020?
Oh, okay, sorry. No, but I do it.
You said in context, yeah.
Wait. But this is a fun story. Okay. So I did a somersault, and his trampoline was the square ones that obviously they don't have nets in the 90s.
Who remembers the square rectangle ones?
Right? And the only way, if you were too small, you could only get through by going through the corner piece, you know, to kind of climb. Yeah. Anyway, so I did a somersault on that, but then I literally somersaulted and hit my head on the concrete slab that the trampoline was underneath. And so,
that would hurt.
I went home with this ginormous egg on my head, and then my mum was kind of like, "Oh, all right, you'll be right. Brush it off." Okay, could be having a brain bleed. I don't know. Anyway, 2020.
So you're also just, I think what you're trying to do is give some context, yeah?
Yeah.
So you're the youngest of 7 kids, and so you correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard you say that, and the impression I get is that by the time you came along, your parents had kind of checked out a little bit.
100%.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Just kind of the older ones can look after the younger ones and let's move off. That's it.
All the things that people say is wrong with big families was the reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I completely, respect my parents for everything they've done. You know, as parents. But at the same time, I'm kind of I probably wouldn't be still in church and loving God as much as I am if I hadn't lived a life of feeling alone.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm tearing up about it because I'm God's so good and gracious.
It's okay, I got tissues. I thought it might happen.
This is a pilot.
We haven't even
episode,
got to like what happened in 2020 yet.
Oh no, I'm done crying about that. That's been a while. So I just kind of 2020 was like a big eye opener for me, and it was like, really intense. I worked in childcare, and it was like, in South Australia, the childcare industry wasn't very well looked after, cared for by the government.
Yeah.
Like they were kind of like, you're an essential worker, sure, go for that, but we have no way of supporting you because we're going to throw all this money and say, every essential worker can get free childcare, and then all the childcare workers are like, yeah, great, so how are we getting paid? So we would, parents would send their kids in for 12 hours a day, and then literally we'd be like, well, we want to go home to our families. Like, I remember there was a point where Scarlett, my daughter, for context, she would go to morning school care, go to school because essential workers could send their kids to school.
Yeah.
She'd go to before school care, then go to school, and then after school care.
Yeah.
And she'd be out just as long as I'd be at work,
Yeah, it was a lot.
It was huge. And then so from that moment I was like, maybe I should lean on God, and my relationship with God back then was it was there, it was present, but it wasn't as close as it has been.
Well, I remember, I don't know if it was then or maybe even a little bit before then, but I didn't realize, I don't know if I've even ever told you this, but we were still really good friends. I was training to be a pastor, and we'd maybe see you guys in church once every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It was not frequent. And I just kind of thought that I don't know what I thought, but I didn't realize how close you still were with the Lord.
Yeah.
And I remember you talking about somebody had released a new worship album. I don't remember which one it was. And I mentioned it to you because it might have even been there was a Lauren Daigle album that dropped then or something. And you were like, yeah, I was unloading the dishwasher, and then I just ended up on my knees weeping on the kitchen floor. And I was just so taken aback by that, because I was like, oh, clearly, Lord, you are still moving just so powerfully in her heart.
I'm crying. I'm sorry.
I wasn't trying to make you cry. I feel like this is going to be a long episode. We haven't even got to any of us moving to Broken Hill. I was just trying to set the scene. But it links into a conversation we've been having the last, particularly the last week or so. And it kind of came up really naturally in my sermon on the weekend as well. But just trusting God in the journey of the people you love.
Yeah.
Trusting that God is journeying with them. It's a whole other story, your husband coming to the Lord. But we were talking about that, and just talking about we've had a bunch of new people come to church, and they're so on fire for Jesus, but subsequently their hearts breaking for spouses or children or whatnot that are still away from the Lord. And I think we have to be obedient. If the Lord tells us to tell people something, if the Holy Spirit's putting on your heart to share with your loved ones, 100% do that. That's so important. But if you are being obedient in that, you can actually trust him in the process.
Yeah.
And so I think I wasn't freaking out being oh, I love Kirsty, she needs to be in church more. I was just God, you've got her. And just when you told me that story about the dishwasher and just ending up on your knees before the Lord.
That.
Yeah.
it's just kind of
just
gone to
burned into my brain.
Cool memory for you, but I'm yeah, it was a good time when I had a dishwasher.
So, and I think God has always really spoken to you, you just have the heart of a worshipper.
Yeah.
So that makes sense as well. So yeah, God was journeying through people. So middle of 2020, you're newly married, trying to work out your faith, trying to work out all these things, and then.
Yeah. So that same year, 2020, my dad had actually I was at work, and working in childcare is rough, but I was in the baby room by myself, and I was put 4 babies to sleep, and I just remember my boss calling the room from the admin desk, and she was like, Kirsty, there's a phone call. No, she didn't call the room. That's right. She came to the room and knocked on the door, and she was like, there's a call on the phone. you need to take it outside.
Yeah.
It's your sister. And I was like, oh, what the heck? Like, you know, I felt real good about myself because I just put 4 babies to sleep.
That is an
you know.
achievement.
Yes. Like, I could be octo mum because I just have that skill of like, you know, and it's just, anyway. I miss working with babies. So like, I just kind of like, you know, I've just like nailed it, you know, it's 10 o'clock. They've all gone down to for sleep, you know.
This is 10 a.m.
Yeah. And then like my boss was like, oh, no, you need to come take this phone call, but maybe take it out of the room. I'll stay in the room. So she like would swap places and I'd gone and I remember like, it's, you know, one of those phones with the windy cords, windy.
Oh, yeah.
You know those? Yeah.
Old school.
And so like she's like, no, you actually have to take it like out of the room. So I took the phone call out of the room and it was my sister and she was like bawling her eyes out. And she was like, Kirsty, Dad's dead. And, you know, it's like one of those situations where it's like in the movies where you're like.
The whole thing was so.
You know, like, I don't know if you watched like, you know, like Private Practice or like Grey's Anatomy. And they're like, oh, so-and-so died. You know, and then he like, oh, dramatic scene ends. It was exactly like that.
It was, yeah.
But it was like, I just remember literally going, and then all I remember is dropping to the floor, sat in the corner of the hallway at my work, and then I just went numb. And then like somehow I managed to get to my sister's house, and then like it was like complete blur. Like I don't remember how I got there. Did I drive myself? Did someone else drive? Like it was such a blur. Ended up going to my sister's house where we all ended up, you know, reconvening and and just kind of going, what the heck actually happened? Because my dad worked away. He worked.
And he was 63?
What is it now? He'd be 69 now.
Yeah.
So it's 5 years ago, 64.
64, yeah. Wow. Yeah, so he had died on a job site.
Yeah. He was driving an excavator and all his mates were like, oh, yeah, good on him driving down the road. He's got his phone on. You know, like they just thought that he had his head slumped down because he was on his phone while he was driving an excavator down the road.
Right.
And then, you know, they'd passed him again and realised actually he's in the same position as what he was before, and realised something was wrong. And he was actually,
gone to be with the Lord.
Yeah, he's
like,
and we, you know, they'd tried everything, like they'd worked on, tried to resuscitate him for quite some time, and an ambulance came after, I think it was like 45 minutes that they tried to work on him still. And like, I think like, this is not like, you know, but yeah, they worked on, and the ambulance people, they just had to call it and they were like, no, that's like, he's gone.
Yeah.
Which is so weird because I like think about it now. I'm like, oh, I could never imagine my dad as a retiree. Like he was the type of person that was just always doing something, like just really busy, and like
he just want to be one of those busy retirees that I think.
Yeah, like you know, but like he'd work, like, you know, work away, but he had the option of coming home, but then he would continue working because he was needed more at the job site than he was needed at home, and then would kind of go, no, I'll take it out of my holiday gap, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like, and then, you know, when he'd get his holidays, he'd just kind of like get paid more because he's worked through those break times, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, so that July that year, like, was hectic. Rough. Like, it was really rough.
I remember I had just finished work. This was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I remember, because like I'm quite good friends with a couple, like 3 out of the 5 of your sisters.
Yeah.
I'm not friends with the others, but like I've got history and friendship and grew up with or whatever else. And anyway, so they're on my Facebook, and I just was like sitting in my office, and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna like scroll Facebook and like just look over the day before I like commute home. It was about a half an hour drive home, and I think it was Sarah had posted this like beautiful tribute, and I couldn't even like compute in my brain. I was like, is it Father's? No, it's not Father's Day. Like I just was like, oh, maybe she's just really loving her dad today, because it didn't like specifically say that he died. Yeah, it gave that impression, but like I didn't want to believe it. And I just remember ringing you, and I was like, what's up, love? And you're like, my dad died. I was like, what? Like, and I knew your dad, like I'd known your dad for years.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah. Like, obviously it's not the same as like losing. But it was like, and I lost somebody really close to me last year, and I remember I rang you and I was like, I don't feel like I did enough when your dad died because this really sucks.
Yeah.
Like it was just awful, and it was like the movies. I remember, I don't know if it was that afternoon or the next day, I was like getting ready to go to your mum's house, and everybody was at your mum's house because it was like the central meeting point.
Yeah.
And I was in Coles, and your mum is a diabetic.
Yeah.
And I just had it in my head that, like, if my husband died, I would want biscuits. I don't know why. And so this, like, lovely lady at Coles came up to me and she's like, are you okay, love? And I was like, my best friend's dad died and her mum's a diabetic, but if my husband died, I would want biscuits. And I can't, like, what biscuits can diabetics eat? She, like...
Can I mental note that for when Josh dies?
I don't even like biscuits that much. Although I have been getting into them lately, like a nice little bicky and a cup of tea. So I bought that and some coffee bags, and I just like those coffee sachets because I thought that would be useful as well. And your parents are just like quintessential like Aussie. Like you think of the old Fibro Housing Trust house with the big deck out the back, and that's like what it was. So everybody was sitting out the back, and I just remember like walking in the kitchen and hugging you, and like every bench is filled with food.
Yeah.
like in the movies.
Yeah.
Just like casseroles and...
People just like, when someone dies, I don't know why. Like I know why, but I don't know why. But people just kind of go, oh yeah, let's feed their stomachs first.
Well,
and
I
then
think
it's like,
people
well,
just
actually,
don't know what to do.
Yeah. Like if someone that close to me dies again, I'd be like, someone just come and clean my house. Like fold my washing. I don't want to do that. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like there's like so many other things, but it's fine. You know, beggars can't be choosers. And it was really lovely that the community literally just like came around us and were like,
yeah. And I also remember, like we were trying not to do a whole podcast episode on your dad, but we could because he was a great man. But
we could actually snip in a bit of him singing. Oh, what song was that? Oh, like Adele.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's got some expletives in it, which I don't think
most Tom stuff did. This beautiful man once told me that he effing knows Jesus. So, and I believe he did. He just had his own way of walking his faith out, and it was beautiful at his funeral. There was like the back row was just filled with like all these young tradie blokes because he just had this way of fathering people, and taking them under his wing. So that all happens. That was like quite a shock to all of us. Just trying to like process all that, your whole family trying to process, because he was really like, in a lot of ways, the glue that held you all together.
Yeah.
And your parents, in the most beautiful way, had that real like codependent thing going on.
Yeah.
But I guess kind of fast forward, so in my own life, I was, like I said before, trying to wrestle through this. Like I'd done all this study to be a pastor, and now I was working as a chaplain. And as much as I love that, it was really draining on me. Like I would go home and need like 20 minutes under the covers in just like complete darkness before I could like parent or talk to people, just because of like, I think that the evil I was confronting every day. Like it was really intense. I'm just trying to like be careful about what I say, but it was bad. Like, and I mean, in amongst that, just like in case people piece it together where I was or anything like that, like the people I worked with were amazing. But it is like when you're out like on the front lines like that every day, it was just a lot for me. And so at the same time, myself and my husband had been in the church that we were in before we came here, like 16 and 13 years respectively. He'd been there 3 years before me, and I'd moved there when we got engaged. So we'd been there a long time. And I like to say, like, I think it's in Proverbs where it talks about iron sharpening iron. It was like iron sharpens iron until like sparks start to fly. And so like I had just been working with the senior pastor there for a very long time. I'd been on his youth team, and then on his eldership as a church. And I had loved that whole journey, but it just really felt like, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, and it's not that necessarily anybody's done anything wrong, or that there's like some tea or drama or anything like that, but it's just sometimes you're in a season and the grace lifts. And it was like that the grace that I'd had being in that church and ministering in that place and studying under that leadership, it was like the grace just lifted. And I was like, this isn't where I'm supposed to be anymore.
Yeah.
Which was really tricky. Like, we had very deep roots there. Like, I don't know, I recently saw a thing about people moving fully grown trees. Like, there's a lot.
You kind of like matured
Yeah.
more like
I was like,
as a Christian and like as a human being.
I mean, that's a whole other episode of like my whole testimony and stuff. But when I first came into that church, it was because me and Josh had gotten engaged. But I just was like I look back on that and I wanted to deeply love Jesus, but I did not deeply love Jesus yet.
Yeah.
And so I was making decisions that probably reflect that.
Yeah.
Is like, I've just had a revelation of that recently. I was like, oh, that's what was, anyway. So that's like really simply how to articulate that. So I had journeyed with those people for a very long time. There's also a scripture that talks about like a prophet isn't known in his own hometown.
Yeah.
And so I think there was a bit of that going on as well, because those people, I'm sure some of them are still like a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Like, I joined that church when I was 18, but I'd been around since I was 16 because I started dating somebody from that church. So we'd kind of do a lot at both churches. So all of that kind of came to a head, which was really confronting, like, for me, because that was home. Like, we had looked at possibly serving in a different church, I think 5 or 6 years previous to that. And we'd gone and we'd looked at some other churches and we'd taken, I think, a month off. And then when I walked back through the doors, I just felt like this is home. This is where we're supposed to be. So we were pretty, like, solidified in there. I was on the eldership. I was serving as an assistant pastor. I'd been ordained as a trainee minister, like all these things. And I found out afterwards that you're not actually supposed to swap, like, churches and covering pastors halfway through that ordination process. I just kind of did it afterwards, you know. Sometimes I think that forgiveness is better than permission. Also, I didn't know I was breaking the rules until afterwards. So anyways, all of that happened. I was ordained through our denomination as a trainee minister and decided to... I was actually watching, which is really funny because since then, the Lord really, like, convicted me and said I was not to watch Grey's Anatomy anymore, which is like another whole thing. But I used to like really love Grey's Anatomy, like would watch it all the time and love a good drama. And one of the ladies has all these like health issues and stuff, and she takes a sabbatical. And I was watching it and I was like, that's what I need. I need to take a sabbatical. And so I went to my senior pastor and I was like, look, I just think I need 6 weeks off. I've been serving in this church for over a decade. I've been serving in ministry. Like, I started serving in creche when I was 13 and basically served consecutively. I'd had 6 months off when I swapped churches, when me and Josh got engaged, and that was it. Like, so I'm going to take 6 weeks off. And he was like, I think that's a really, really good idea. I was like, we might be here on Sundays, we might not. Like, we're just going to take 6 weeks to really evaluate what this looks like for us as a family. So that was in, I reckon, I want to say like early November. So kind of like this time 5 years ago. And 2 weeks in, I got really bored. Because if you know anything about me, I'm like a doer. I just like, I was like,
ADHD really kicked in.
yeah. I was just like, oh, what are we doing? Like, I want to know what's next, Lord. And so I emailed Pastor Wally, who was the senior pastor here at the time, and I said, so Josh had made our denomination's website and they had said, yes, still carry on the position for Broken Hill, even though they'd been advertising for a senior pastor for like a decade, which just blows me away because a decade prior, I would not have been like up for the challenge or emotionally stable enough or lots of things. Anyway, so I emailed and said, are you still like looking for a senior pastor? Is this ad still current? And got an email back, I think within a couple of hours, saying, yes, can you come up next weekend and we'll just tell everybody that you're a guest preacher and you can like suss it out. And I was like, oh yeah, sounds good. And so I think you had George maybe.
Yeah, no, I did, yep.
Because he ran into traffic or something.
No, he didn't run into traffic. So I don't know if you guys know South Australia or like, you know, whoever's watching, South Australia, there's a big playground.
Oh, it was that time, yeah.
St Kilda, yeah. And then George was like, what? Like
George is my youngest child, yeah.
He was like 2 at the time. And
maybe 4?
I don't know, he was young.
Yeah.
Anyway,
3?
he had zero social awareness, and it all makes sense now. But he literally like legged it. I don't know if you know how big St Kilda Playground is, but he legged it to the furthest playground.
It's like a giant
and I was like
playground.
freaking out, going, "Oh my gosh, this is the first time I've looked after one of her kids." Like, you know,
So
she's
basically,
gonna kill me.
while we were in Broken Hill, Kirsty lost one of my children, but she found him again.
Yeah, it felt like hours, but it was probably only like 12 minutes. But then this lady said, "Excuse me, is that your little boy all the way up there?" And then I saw him walking up this massive dirt hill going the wrong way up a slide. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes!" And I was like, "Don't run away from me again." And freaked out. And I just kind of was like, "Do not let him out of our sight. Like, we need a leash on this kid."
Yeah, George is a challenge.
It was, anyway,
So
he's great.
all that happened. So we divided our kids in thirds and sent them off to different family and friends, and just myself and my husband came up. And when you drive into Broken Hill from that direction, you kind of come over a crescent, and then you like all of a sudden see the town. And so that happened. We came over the crescent, and I just start crying, and my husband, Josh, he looks at me and he's like, "We are not moving 600 kilometres because you cried." So it kind of like kick-started this whole thing. So I was like sold before we'd met the church, before we'd met the current pastor, before anything. I saw the town and I was like, this is what's happening. But really wanted to, I guess like we had learnt the hard way in our marriage that like, or I had learnt the hard way, probably more so, that like I can steamroll ahead and make decisions, but that doesn't actually work very well. And we really, like, our goal when making the decision to move up here was we didn't ever want the other person to be able to say, "You dragged me up here.
Yeah.
You know, you made me move here." So we really wanted to make that decision together. So a lot of prayer, a couple of arguments, and a lot of discussion went into like, and Josh was never not on board. Like, it wasn't like I had to convince him. He just wanted time to process. And I was really grateful because, like, to be honest, there's been times in the last 5 years that I'm like, why the heck are we here? Like, let's just go home.
Yeah.
Let's move to where some other friends are. Like, it has been really isolated and really lonely at times. And so it's been really good that, like, those couple of months just really wrestling through with the Lord, like, whether this was the right decision was really powerful. And at one point we both almost said no, because we'd felt like God had said that it was our decision. So I don't know where people sit theologically on this. Like, people say like God has a plan for your life. I really believe that God has a million plans for your life. Like,
Yeah.
you can't kind of screw it up and then, oh, well, that's it, you're off the plan. Like, we have autonomy, we have free will, and we have free choice.
Yeah.
And so I believe that, like, you know, the scripture that says he works together for the good of those that love him, like, he had, you know, so he has plans, but I just think they're like limitless. So I don't think, had we stayed in Adelaide, we would have been outside of the will of
I
God.
feel like if you don't stay with your plans, like, you know, you don't stay with God's plans, you kind of like,
He's got a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
yeah, but he's like always there with you in the rectifying too, you know?
Yeah,
like,
he's also the God of reconciliation,
Yeah.
of rectification. Like, his mercies are new every morning. Like, So we had both felt from the Lord, if you go, I'll bless you, and if you stay, I'll bless you.
Yeah.
Like, that was the feeling that we'd had. And so we'd almost leaned towards no, but then we both, me and my husband, like, I just remember it almost feeling like that was breaking my heart to say no. And I was like, no, we have to go. And then, so that was November. Then in December,
5th of December.
the 5th of December.
Just to be precise.
Yeah, so nearly 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell that part of the story? So at this point, me and Kirsty, like, I was like, you know, leaving.
Actually, I think it was around about the same time that, like, so we went through a lockdown. There was like a whole thing about a lockdown, and this is what I do remember, is that there was a lockdown because some guy like was like COVID infected apparently, and then worked in a pizza shop, and then, you know, became
but it was like a lie?
It was like, yeah, but it ended up being fake or something. If you're from SA, you know. But like, so we were in lockdown, and then like my work Christmas dinner was going to be cancelled, and then all of a sudden, because that thing ended up to be wrong. The work dinner ended up going
That's right, yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And that's probably the only thing that I do remember about that whole thing. But but then
So yeah, we were like trying to make this massive life decision, and like some of the real, like, I guess, reasons for us to have stayed in the Adelaide Hills was that, like, my husband's family was there, and so we would do like Sunday lunch with them every week. So like it meant moving kids away from grandparents, and also, as we said before, we were like doing life together, really, in the real set. Like, I know churches like about we're doing life together, but we genuinely were. Like, we were having meals together every week. We would, like, obviously, we met when we were like somewhere between 10 and 12.
Yeah.
Like, had known each other for decades, but at that point, like, yeah, we were really doing life together. You go to your work Christmas do, and, well, I don't know, should I share like my perspective on what happened, and then you can fill in the blanks?
I'll fill you in, but I'll bring the comical humour to it afterwards, because we all joke through trauma.
So I was like, it was a Sunday morning, and we had a young guy. This is like another whole episode, but we had a young guy that was living with us.
Shout out to Tom, by the way.
Shout out to Tom. He'll probably listen, He
actually probably would.
Because he's a bit of a cheerleader. I like Tom. But so Tom was living with us, which had been like a bit of a COVID thing as well. He was a young guy, and he had said, I don't want to do lockdown with my brothers. Can I come stay with you guys for 2 weeks? And at that point, he'd been in our house for maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
And
it was a really long 2 weeks.
It's a really long 2 weeks. My little brother, like my biological little brother, had moved in as well. So it's like I had 2 little brothers living with me.
I had like 17 dogs. Okay.
Oh, yeah, because anyways, that's we're getting really sidetracked.
Sorry.
So Kirsty's husband, who I think was like, I look back on how he handled it, which was brilliant, by the way. Like, he saved her life, but I think he was still very much in shock. So what had happened is she, essentially your heart stopped, yeah? Like, it's not a heart attack.
No. So, like, the doctors have, like, just kind of said, oh, yeah, we don't know, because, like, all my valves and everything are clear. My heart is actually really, really healthy.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, yeah, the size of her, I don't know why I did that in the microphone.
So
can you hear that?
If you're just listening, she gave the, like, the quotations Bunny is the size of her.
But I did it in the microphone.
Also, if you're listening, Kirsty's not a skinny mini, like, because I can't see you either.
By the way, yeah. So I'm like the Tony Lodge of churches. So
who's Tony Lodge?
You don't know. Okay, all right. Okay, well,
we're getting sidetracked. So
all right, jump on our podcast, and there's the same, or maybe not the same time, because they kind of contradict each other spiritually. But
what are you listening to? Okay, all right. Your heart stopped. Kirsty's heart stopped. Her husband really quickly realised that, like, this is really bad. Like, floors it through the little town you were in.
Okay, so wait. Okay, sorry. I just want to jump in. So I had a few wines.
Okay, I wasn't going to say that.
Okay, no, I want to say this. I want to say this because I'd had a few wines, and for
the record,
in my mature,
when you say a few, you mean like
there was like, I don't know, maybe 2.
Yeah, okay, because people will hear a few and think that you had like 6 bottles of wine.
No, okay.
Because for some people, a few is like plastered.
Okay,
but like in our world, a few is like 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
okay.
Like my max is probably 3 wines, because then I've got a limit, and that's the limit.
Yeah.
Is the 3. But then I was kind of like, on this like bit of a, I'm silly.
Yeah.
And so my husband, he was doing night shift. And so he'd taken a night off of work to come to this staff dinner and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yep, come to this staff dinner.
Because he didn't want to go. I nearly went with you instead.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't want to come, I'll take Jessie.
Yeah. And so she's like, we kind of, Anyway. So like he, went with me, and then, or like, it got to like 9 o'clock, and he was like, I'm getting so tired. And apparently me and him were having like a bit of a disagreement.
Because you don't actually, just to clarify for everybody, this is all stuff that you've been told at this point.
So this is all
because you don't
hearsay.
remember the 2 weeks before the incident.
Yeah, so I remember, so like it's slowly memories are slowly repairing.
Yeah.
And I can remember
That
Only
Richard was
by-
grumpy.
I remember that he was grumpy, but I also remember like the pizza lockdown.
Yeah,
like
okay.
you know the fake pizza lockdown.
Yeah.
Only because I've also got like I documented it all on Facebook, and then I looked on my memories, and I'm going, oh, like, and it's
Facebook
kind of
memories, they're
like,
good for something.
it's kind of like,
Yeah.
you know, brought back some sort of memory,
Yeah.
you know, memory from that. And yeah, so like, yeah, we were out, but he was like, oh, I want to leave, blah, blah, blah. And I was really like just a bit bitter about leaving because I was like, oh, you always leave early. Like,
Yeah.
because he's the type of person that he lives his best life when he's in his own shell. You know, he's like a hermit
He's
crab.
introverted, yeah.
Yeah. So like,
Again,
being out in-
Richard is a lovely man.
being in social situations, he can't leave soon enough. So like, and I'm such an excremented.
Extrovert.
Not excremented.
Okay, so
Sorry.
your heart stops.
Yeah.
Richard drives you to the hospital.
Yeah.
They work on you for 20 minutes.
Yeah. So their timeline on the doctor's report says unknown time prior.
Okay.
But it's like they were working on me for 13. So
Okay.
however long it took from that.
So you
from
were
the point-
clinically dead for approximately 20 minutes.
Yeah, so I literally just said...
That's a tagline right
I
there.
just
Put that
go-
on Instagram. I was clinically dead for 20 minutes.
Yeah, right, and now look at me.
I know, living your best life.
But like, yeah, so I was like, you know, I told him like, shut up, I feel sick, and then just kind of like, in the seat.
Yeah.
And he was like, I knew there was something wrong when you wet yourself and you were foaming from the mouth. And I was like, oh, well, that wasn't normal for me wetting myself. Like, and sorry, I joke through trauma.
I nearly bought her a badge the other day that says, at least all the trauma made me funny.
Yeah,
So
right. Yeah, that would have been, I think that's a...
maybe I still should.
It's a banner. It needs to be a banner on my... Maybe I'll...
Put it on a t-shirt. We both have cricket machines.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
yeah. So Kirsty has this huge episode, and Kirsty's husband, I think, is still in shock at this point, and he rings. He just decides not, like, he figures it's not worth us losing sleep. I don't even know what he
Well,
figured.
he'd said that, like, that night, it was like, by the time that they'd, like, you know, stabilized me and everything like that, it was like midnight, apparently.
And were you airlifted or just transferred via ambulance?
No, so apparently they were going to airlift me, and I was like, all my
Because she's
life...
about an hour out of Adelaide at this point.
Yeah, so all my life, I've actually wanted to go in a helicopter. And I was like, why did you ruin my chance of not going in a
Do you know
helicopter?
you can do it for like $300 out here, and it includes a dinner? We should do that. Anyway.
Wait, in the RFDS?
No, it's just like Broken Hill private helicopter charters.
I did see the helicopter the other day. I thought that was kind of cool.
I think that's what. Anyway, we're getting really sidetracked.
yeah.
So Kirsty doesn't die, and it's a really fun story to tell now because I'm like, my best friend died, but she didn't stay dead, and like, there's just so many worship songs that have all new meaning.
Yeah, like I just remember, like it was about 6 months later. And I kind of went church hopping and to try and find a church. And I was like...
Yeah, they were skipping ahead though, because that's kind of part of the whole journey.
Okay, all right, sorry. Okay. Oh,
Sorry.
I was
All
going to relate it back to the songs.
Okay,
but
what
anyway.
song?
Oh, you know, this is my testimony from death to life. Anyway, so I went to like
Whole new meaning.
this church and they sang that song, and I was like, actually, yeah, this is my testimony. Like that is actually like real life, death to life. So I spent like 9 months in like a brain rehab, and I was like when I was in hospital for like 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Close to 4 weeks. And I was like released from hospital like 2 days before Christmas, which is subsequently the day before Richard's birthday.
Yeah. So
As well.
trace back to that night. So that'll happen. Richard just figured it wasn't worth waking us up. Like, I think he just was like in total shock, went home, kind of maybe slept for a couple of hours. And so he rings this young guy that's living with us, Tom, and he says, is Jessie awake yet? And I think part of my giftings is that I'm really prophetic and I really feel things. And so I had felt weird that whole night.
Yeah.
I hadn't slept super well, and I could hear Tom on the phone, and Tom's like, yeah, I think I've heard some noises from their bedroom. I think they're awake. And then he like yelled out, he's like, Jessie, Richard wants to call you. And so I think he hung up on Tom and rang me. And in my mind, I was like thinking, praying, hoping that all it was is I thought that he was going to say to me, Kirsty had 2 wines and then was dancing and broke her ankle or something. Like, I thought he was ringing me to tell me that you'd broken a bone, which she has done a few times. And
yeah, but that was after.
I know. But anyway, that's what I thought it was going to be. Or probably not so much thought, was like hoping it would only be as insignificant as that, because I knew something was really wrong. And poor Richard, like, he says to me, Kirsty passed out last night and she hasn't woken up again yet. And that was like all he could kind of get out and say.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what the heck? What does that what does that even mean? And so
It wasn't the wines, guys.
my husband goes over to see Richard and like just sits with him for like an hour and a half. So I'm just sitting at home for an hour and a half being like, what? And it's like a Sunday morning, so we're kind of getting ready for church, but I'm like, something's really wrong. And anyways, Josh kind of gets the full story and comes back and tells me. And so at this point, we're told you're in an induced coma. You're in an induced coma, and that we should prepare ourselves that you could wake up as a vegetable.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, Broken Hill is out the window. Kirsty's going to need me. Like, you know, because I think when I think about our relationship, I see you as family. Like, we're like sisters. Like, and I just think it's the greatest blessing that you have a billion sisters and you're like, oh, but I'll chuck in one more. And I have no sisters. So I have a lot of sister-in-laws. Anyway, so I'm like, well, Kirsty's going to need me. Like, we can't go anywhere now, blah, blah, blah. And so everything was just kind of on hold for a couple of days. I went to church because it's 2020. And like you said, there'd just been all these like somewhat lockdowns. And so we were not allowed to go to the hospital. And I still remember like months later watching some TV show and somebody gets injured and everybody goes to the hospital and you all wait in a waiting room for like updates. And we were not allowed to do that. Like, I had to stay at home. And I'm like really have quite a strong conviction about not lying, which I think all Christians should. But I think people don't even realise how much they like lie and deceive people. But I'll be honest, I did lie because I rang the hospital. Because if you're ordained, you get like a little card that has like your minister's number on it and stuff, and you can use that for different things.
When you have a cardiac device, you also get the same card.
Well, not the same, but a card. Yeah, for like airports and stuff. So
it's like we're kind of the same.
I had rung the hospital and I had said, I'm her pastor, which I wasn't at the time. Is she allowed a pastoral visit? And they had denied that, which was somewhat comforting because the logic there was like, if they thought you were dying, they would have allowed a pastoral visit.
Yeah.
So
it was like trial and error. It
was kind of comforting. So then I had to ring my pastor, who was kind of her pastor, and be like, just so you know.
Throw a vest on my dog and be like, I'm a support dog.
If you ring.
Can I come and visit her?
Yeah, if you ring the hospital, I've told them I'm her pastor. And so Richard had also said to the hospital, like, if Jessie calls, give her updates. But I rang once and I was like, oh, this is like my confessional now of all the lies I told. But I rang once and I was like, oh, my name's Jessie. I should be on the list to get updates. Like, are you family? And I was like, well, no. And they're like, we can't tell you anything then. So I was actually the first person to know that you were awake.
Yeah.
Which Richard's still, I think, a bit salty about.
He probably won't watch this, so that's fine.
Yeah.
He'll hear it.
He might. Who knows?
Maybe. I don't know. There'll be
Richard is a good man.
Driving to Adelaide without him, so he might spend that time alone listening to my voice on here.
I feel like you've shrunk or the microphone's gone down. I don't know.
These mic stands are fantastic.
They are. And so anyway, I rang the hospital and they said, oh, are you related? And I just said, oh, yes, I'm her sister. Which, like, technically I'm your sister in Christ. So I don't know whether that was a lie or not. But they said, oh, she's just woken up and she is speaking. And I was like, oh, my gosh. And so I think I rang Richard and I was like, you need to ring the hospital for an update. And so just the fact that you were talking English eligibly when you woke up was a miracle. But that Sunday we'd gone to church. You're still in a coma. And I remember our pastor at the time, he came out and he met us in the car park and he prayed this like wonderful prayer, like, you know, when people pray good prayers. I'm doing the air quotation marks now as well because I don't think there's any such thing. A good prayer is a genuine prayer. But, you know, he prayed this big, eloquent prayer, which was beautiful. And I was just like, I literally don't think I said anything that day except don't let her die. Please don't let her die. Like, that was all I could pray. Look, she's nearly crying again.
I'm not going to cry. It's fine.
I'm doing really well.
I haven't cried through all the trauma.
I haven't cried at all
yet.
Here
I am, like, tearing up again.
So I'm like, oh, just don't let her die. Don't let her die. And I just also remember at the same time, I just had this like peace. Like I really obviously did not want you to die, and that was my prayer. But I was also just like, if you did die, you were going to go be with Jesus. And so, like, I think, I love that the Bible promises us peace that surpasses understanding, because that's what it was. Like, it was the peace that surpassed understanding. I was like, it's going to suck so bad for me, but like, if you die, you'll be fine. Like, you'll be with Jesus.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of that was kind of intention, but obviously you didn't die. And then you woke up, and then you were just like, again, I feel like your life is like the movies. It's like 50 First Dates or something. Hey, her memory was shot.
Actually,
and so,
I just want to kind of like, I've like hyper-focused on Home and Away for the last 5 years, I reckon.
I did not even know that.
Yeah, it's my secret shame.
Okay.
It's like a secret.
It's all coming out.
So I watch Home and Away a lot.
Like still?
Yeah. Well, not at the moment because they're on a break for the holidays for Christmas.
I was a Neighbours girly growing up.
No, can't stand Neighbours. It's a whole thing. If you know, you know. But like, things that I watch on there, I'm like, oh, maybe they've just kind of got like, maybe I'm like the Truman Show.
Maybe.
Like things that happened to me, they've just kind of like mirrored it on the show. Like,
because it was hilarious. So like the first time we spoke post your accident, I'll never forget it because my phone starts ringing because you'd been given your phone back, which in my opinion was too early. You should not have been given a phone. And you ring me and you were like,
can I just put
this
into perspective for a second? Like, just imagine giving a toddler free range of a phone and just kind of go.
It was bad.
Yeah, sure. Like, call anyone you want.
Because she couldn't, like, her brain was still your brain was still so jumbled.
Yeah.
And because she's got all these, like, Kirsty's one of 7, and so you've got a brother, I don't know if Matt went to visit you or not. And then a couple of sisters were interstate, but there was like 4 or 5 sisters, plus Richard, plus her mum. So I had to wait till like day 7 or 8 to visit you. And so we hadn't spoken post, and I didn't even know you'd been given your phone back. And so, I know that she's in hospital. I know that she's awake, that her memory's shot, but she's talking and, she does remember some people and some things. And that's like kind of all the information I have. So we're like holding out hope, but it's still pretty like early days. And so then my phone starts ringing and it's you. Kirsty
From the grave.
Sounds the grave. And so I answered her and I was like, oh, hello, love, how are you doing? And you just like straight for the jugular, you're like, is my dad dead?
So, okay, all right. So,
and I was like, oh, that's probably a conversation you should have with Richard, like with your husband when he comes in later. And at this point, you were like not even always remembering that Richard was your husband. And you were like, oh, so he is dead then. And then you just hung up on me. And I was like, I don't know if this is a good thing or not.
I do remember this, but it was only like, because I was reminded of it, is that I called my old boss. So I'd like...
Oh, yeah, because you thought you still worked, not at the employee you're at, but the one before that.
Yeah, 2 or 3 months prior to all of this happening, I had changed jobs. And so I'd called my old boss.
To, like, apologise.
To apologise to her, to say, like, I hadn't been at work. And she was like, Kirsty, you don't work for me anymore. It's just kind of like... It was loose. Like, but apparently I was just really like, nope. And then apparently, like, it was like... like, if, you give a toddler your phone and
or
they're
like
just
a
calling
5-year-old maybe.
Yeah, so I kept calling her, and I think by the end
you would
of it,
also
I think she ended up
forget.
turning her phone off.
Yeah, because you would forget. So it wasn't like you would call her. So anyways, all this happens.
This is why I want a Dory tattoo.
Yeah, I finally visit her on like day 7 or 8, and I remember it's the first time you were allowed to go outside. We went outside and we sat in the thing there, and then Richard gets a phone call. So this is also all like late December.
Yeah.
So Richard gets a phone call saying, like, you can come home. Well, I don't know. Anyways, you get released because they set up a whole at-home rehab. So for the next basically 12 months, you're like doing brain rehab and all the rest.
I actually passed the test. So like before you like get discharged from hospital with this kind of stuff, you have to do like a memory retention test. And so I did that test, and you have to score between 19 and 20 to then go home.
Right.
And so I scored, no, I think it was like 18 and 20 or something, but I'd scored 18 and a half.
Yeah.
And so I literally got that half mark. If I hadn't have scored, you know, that half mark, I would have had to be
Because we
in
were
a
all
rehab
thinking you were going to a
for
rehab
9 months.
facility. So quite
Yeah.
quickly you got sent home, but you were not allowed to be by yourself.
Yeah.
And so Richard was still working at this point because, you know, Christmas time, all that kind of stuff, trying to keep some income coming in.
This
And
was
so,
in a job that he hated.
yeah, and he was
So-
doing night shifts. So it was just crazy. So he rang me and he's like, Kirsty's coming home. Can you come and stay with her tonight? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And so our favourite movie is 10 Things I Hate About You. Like, we've seen that together a bazillion times.
Yeah.
So I remember sitting on the couch watching 10 Things I Hate About You. I think it was that. And every, like, 20 minutes, you were just like, it's Richard's birthday tomorrow. We need to get him a present. I was like, yeah, Josh was gone to get him a present. Anyways. So all of this happens. And in amongst that, once we kind of knew that you were going to, like, it was looking like you were going to be okay. So you were still in hospital, just to kind of bring it back to the story of how I ended up in Broken Hill, because there's lots of different funny rabbit holes we could go down. But I remember sitting at our dining room table and I said to Richard, well, we're not going to, like, we can't go to Broken Hill now. Like, you guys need us. I want to support Kirsty. And he was like, no, you have to go to Broken Hill. And so just to kind of bring in everything else that was going on in our lives, I think it was like, so before this, I had been in church worshipping, and the Lord had said to me really specifically, which he's actually done a few times with this person, but to go and see, I think it's all right to say her name, but to go and see a lady named Vicky that I had known since, I don't know, I was 9 years old. She was one of my really good friends growing up's mum, and so I went out for coffee with her, and I said to her, I just don't know if I'm ready to take on a church or be a senior pastor. And she had said, well, I don't think anyone's ever ready for that, which was really freeing. It's like, thank you. And then she'd also said, well, we have, which is like been another whole journey since then, but they had some people that had recently been overseas doing BSSM, which is like the Bethel Ministry School. And they'd come back to Australia and were staying with Vicky because they had quite a big house because they'd had 4 children, but then now they were empty nesters. And anyway, so they were living with them. And I'd never met these people before, but, you know, shout out to Eloise if you end up listening. And so we had gone and met with them as well, and we'd all had dinner together, and they had, like, prayed over us. Our pastor had prayed over us and prayed with us. Like, my husband's parents had been praying for us and with us, and maybe a little bit that we wouldn't go because they didn't want to lose their grandchildren to Broken Hill, and, like, all these things. So all of these people, but nobody was like, yep, you should go, or no, you should stay. Like, everybody was like, just praying that God would reveal it to us, or, like, you know, which I think I'm so grateful for.
Yeah.
Because what happened was once we made the decision to come up here, everybody was like, yeah, that's the right decision.
Yeah.
But they didn't say that beforehand.
Yeah.
So I'd, like, reconnected with them. Like, that's just one example of some of the people that were just so precious to us and spoke into us, and I'm, like, so, so grateful for. We have an extra guest. Our sound guy's just, like, sneaking through the back there. And so I was so, so grateful for them. But I was like, I only realised the other day, Richard was the only person that was like, you should go to Broken Hill.
Yeah.
And, like, just directly said it. The day that you had your accident, Pastor Woll, who was up here, had rung me. So, like, all the church up here was praying for you as well, which was just so special. Because I think, like, maybe 6 months later was the first time that you came up and you led worship as a part of that. So all these people, but Richard was like, no, you can't stay, you have to go. Like I think he just had this, like, epiphany. Like, he wasn't really walking with the Lord at that point, but he just had this realization that, like, when something like that happens, you realize how short and fragile life is.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, you guys have got to go to Broken Hill. So yeah, somewhere in amongst all of that, that was kind of going on. And then I remember, like, we were still just kind of trying to think through this decision, trying to, like, help you guys out. And you got really angry with me, Richard, one night because you were like, I'm not a baby, I don't need babysitting. And we were like, Kirsty, the two of us have been through so much stress. Like, you nearly died. Shut up, sit down. We're doing what the doctors say.
I didn't get it, but I was like,
Yeah.
I was the youngest of 7 siblings too, so I'm like, just
was,
like my entire
some PTSD
life being
triggering.
bossed around, and then I'm like getting bossed around by these people that I've chosen to be in my life, and then I'm just kind of like, well, this is crap, because like these are the people that I've chosen to actually do my life with, but they're like bossing me around like my siblings. Like, go away.
Yeah. And so, yeah. So all of that happened, and then I remember we went to Moonta Bay, which we often do. Like, we go to the coast in South Australia for holidays, and there was like another person there, and they'd moved away with their kids when they were little, and they're like, this isn't prophetic, but XYZ, this was fabulous. And me and Josh walked away, we're like, that was really prophetic. Like, someone's like really speaking into our life. We rang other friends, and we came back in the January to visit over the Australia Day long weekend, and decided with our children, and by the end of that visit we had said yes to moving up here to Broken Hill. So I guess that's like the story of how myself and Josh and our 3 children ended up in Broken Hill. And I think that might be a good place to like end this episode, and then we'll come back for the next episode and talk about how you ended up following us.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Thank you for listening. If you've got this far, I hope you really enjoyed it.
Congratulations.
Please, this is just such a new baby podcast. We've been able to do it basically because Kirsty got made redundant. So our dream is that this could potentially bring in some extra money to like fund our families and our ministries and things. So please share it around. Like, I think it's a really powerful story. Like, it really is a story of resurrection and God just moving through the trauma, and everything that could have been bad, God has worked together for his good and his glory. So amen.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. Check you out next time.
Check you out.
Well, not really check you out. We'll see you next time. Listen to us next time. It's going to be great. We're hilarious.
We'll work on our sign.
We actually literally said the other day, I said to Kirsty, I think we're like above average funny. Like, okay. I think we're funnier than most people.
But I think we just need to end it with, love you, bye.
Love you, bye.